I was a trainer in the police academy. That's what I taught officers to be, were warriors, man. I didn't teach them to be guardians. I want get out there, knock some heads, do what you got to do, and get home every day. But in this space, we not only recognize the need to be different, we went a step further and built a training program that helped give them tools to start thinking here instead of using the tools around their belt.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. What's going on, Black and Blue fan? Welcome to the latest edition of the Black and Blue Podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. My name is Dale, and thank you for coming here because I'm the host, and thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate that. Before we get started, let me ask you, please click those like, subscribe, and bell icons right down here on my YouTube channel. And if you listen to me on your favorite podcast platform of choice, make sure you rate the Black and Blue Podcast 5 stars. And finally, make sure you check me out on any one of my social media pages for even more content. You can find me everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, y'all, so check this out. My guest is responsible for the safety of students and staff in the ATL schools. So, Black and Blue fan, please help me welcome to the show Atlanta Public Schools Police Chief Ronald Applin. How you doing, sir?
All right, I'm doing well. How about you?
Man, I cannot complain. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. So I mentioned there that you were in the ATL, as the dirty as we call it.
Yes,
are you originally from there?
I am a rare find. I was born and raised in Atlanta. I grew up in Atlanta. As a matter of fact, when I say Atlanta, if you listen real close, the T's sound like D's. So that's how you know if somebody's from Atlanta. So yeah,
the T's
I've been here
sound
all
like
my life.
D's.
The T's sound like
right.
D's. That's right.
All
That's right.
All right.
Been
All
here
your
all my life.
man.
Went to school in Atlanta. I did travel a little bit in the Marines, but I was born and raised here, and back here trying to do what I can for my community.
Yep, and then you came back.
Yeah,
good to see that. Yeah. So ATL is a little different. It's in Georgia, but it's a big metropolitan city. What's that like in growing up and living in Atlanta?
Wow, just seeing all the changes that have happened since, in the last, I'm 55 years old, so I've been in law enforcement for 34 years, but it's been pretty interesting to see the changes that have happened over the years, to see the progression of housing, how schools have changed, how politics have changed. You went from having, mostly white mayors to now African-American mayors. I mean, so you're seeing so many things change in the city of Atlanta. It's just positive, a lot of positive change in Atlanta for sure.
Absolutely. They call ATL the chocolate city of the South. That title used to be in DC. Now it's kind of shifted towards Atlanta.
Yeah, it sounds like it has. It definitely sounds like it has for sure. So,
all right. And you are now the chief of police of the Atlanta Public Schools. How long you been with that agency?
So the agency started in 2016. I am the first chief of police for the new Atlanta Public Schools Police Department. So we took over from Atlanta Police in 2016 and been here since then.
What was the emphasis behind creating their own police department?
So at the time, and I wasn't here when it started. I wasn't here when they were thinking about doing it. I was selected as a chief of police, but there were a lot of things that the school district wanted to do that was not in alignment with what the police department that was servicing them at the time wanted to do. So the priorities were different, and the superintendent at the time, who was Maria Karstarfin, had the idea that, look, I just don't start my own police department, much like some other districts in the metro area have done, and we'll we'll bring them in, we'll train them how we want them to be trained, we'll run things like we want things to be ran, in a way that benefits our students the best. So, and that's how I got started.
Nice, nice. And where'd you come from?
Well, I retired from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Atlanta sits in Fulton County, so I was there. I did quite a few things at the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. My last duty was in charge of field operations. I was a SWAT team commander, and that story is kind of different. I went from being a SWAT team commander now being, protective kids. I go
Yep.
from being a warrior to a guardian, and so that's been a transition over the years. But yeah, retired from the sheriff's office. I actually went and taught for a year at a high school. I taught law and justice, and that kind of started my interest in K through 12. And so doing that, interacting with kids, seeing how I was able to impact a lot of the kids who were in my class. I was there for a year. I got an offer to work at a private school where my kids go to school as a director of security. And then that was another thing that I learned a lot from, working with administrators, building safety plans, really prioritizing the entire school and how we go about operating and interacting with folks to make the school safe. And I was sitting at home during the winter break, and just to be honest with you, I did it for 3 years, but I never got used to being off for a week for Thanksgiving and a week for 2 weeks for Christmas and the whole summer.
Yep.
And that was driving me nuts, man. I was sitting at home watching television, and I saw a news footage about APS start a new police department. I was like, I ought to try that. I did, and I was selected, and here I am today, the chief of police for Atlanta
All
Public
right.
Schools.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. How large is the district? How many students?
So we have 55,000 students in the metro area. That's not as large as some of the surrounding districts, but the level of work that's required for our students is a lot higher. I mean, it feels like 100,000. I don't say that negatively. I'm just telling you the demand, the level of attention that's needed, the level of services that are required for our kids. It's a lot higher. We're inner city. So you know what comes along with that in any large city. Inner
Yep.
city, minorities, economically disadvantaged, racially disadvantaged. I mean, all those things come along with that, and all the things that come with that, dealing with crime, dealing with gangs, dealing with you name it. All the troubles that they have, they bring it to the school, and we have to deal with that. So it feels like 100,000. It really does.
Right. And then how large is the new department?
So we started out about 67 officers, and we now have been we're authorized 132, and we're going to grow a little bit more because of all the things that you hear around the country with active shooters, with those types of things are, got a lot of people a little concerned. So there's a big push to add more officers and to provide more coverage in schools. So we'll probably be at about 140 before this year's over with. So it's pretty big.
Yeah.
We're actually the largest school police in the state of Georgia.
Okay. And what do you have them all in every school, or just in high schools,
So
or how
so
does
right
that
now
work?
we have
Deployment.
officers in every middle and high school. We have them in some elementary schools, and then we have officers who patrol the district, and they cover the elementary schools. We're going to try to get as many officers as we can to reduce the ratio of officers to elementary schools as much as we can. I don't think we'll ever get to 1-to-1, but maybe 1-to-2 or 1-to-3
Yep.
is what we're looking at. But then we'll, like I said, 132 officers. We're not fully staffed, but we're working towards that. We'll hopefully get to that before the summer's over. And that's something that every police agency is dealing with, especially.
yeah.
So we're fishing in the same pond, so to speak, when it comes to that. But yeah, we have one in every. Well, okay, so it's 2-to-3 in every high school, 1-to-2 in every middle school. We have a few elementary schools that we have officers in, and we're patrolling the district. I have a CID I have a full rank structure: a captain, a major, a captain, lieutenant, sergeants, investigators, corporals. We're pretty. I think we're pretty robust. We're in a good place to be able to serve our kids.
Nice. And it's a full service department, right?
Well,
So you say you have
we do everything.
investigators
We
and
do it all 24/7. We do it everything. With the exception of more serious crimes, we'll call in Atlanta or the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to assist us. Thankfully, we don't have many of those, but for the most part, we handle everything. We handle everything.
yeah.
Everything that happens. If it happens on the school property, it's ours 24/7.
There you go. There you go. And how, Atlanta used to be Atlanta Metro or Atlanta PD used to be in the schools, and now
They do.
they're out. What's the relationship now still with Atlanta PD?
In the beginning, it was rough. We were That was and I won't say that for the entire department with Atlanta Police, because there were quite a few people who I knew when I was at the sheriff's office, and we had good relationships, thankfully. And then some of my officers work for Atlanta Police, so that helped a whole lot. But there was an effort to do everything that could be done to make us fail. Um, and I don't get into the politics, but I remember when I was watching that. I told you the story about watching the news, and they were talking about creating a department. I remember the mayor at the time said it's not going to work. Well, 7 years later, we're still here,
Yep.
and we're doing pretty good. But the relationship today is the best I've seen as long as I've been in law enforcement. It's the best I've seen. I've never
Okay.
seen this level of communication, level of cooperation, level of engagement. I'll tell you, man, it's unbelievable. It really is. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to a lot of the chiefs who've come on board. So there have been probably 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to say 4 or 5 chiefs since I started at Atlanta Police, and every
Oh,
chief it
wow.
got better. So every chief it got better. But today is the best I've seen. It's the best. I mean,
Okay.
we're really doing such a great service to our kids. I mean,
And
it's amazing.
that's the part right there. Yeah, that's the part right
It's
there, because
amazing.
everybody, we're all working to make sure the safety and security of the kids and the
Right,
staff as well. And
right.
so there's no button heads on that, right?
At all. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I said in the beginning, it was always a discussion about, is it ours or theirs. Now it's like, we get it, we understand it. We got you. They're giving us a heads up, we're giving them a heads up. We're
Yeah.
talking. I mean, I talk to the chief probably 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, when I first started, the chief wouldn't even take my call. The chief at the time, he wouldn't take my call. He wouldn't meet with me. Um, but I understood it was a politics. It was a politics of the situation, and I get that. But now it's like, man, I mean, we talk all the time. We were on the phone this morning talking about 5 o'clock this morning, talking about hostage barricade that was across the street from one of our schools. They're giving us a heads up saying, hey, you might want to do something different because it's inaccessible, and we're working on that. But thanks to them, and they're talking to us about this stuff, we're not caught off guard. We're getting ahead of things.
Yeah.
So kids don't walk down the street and see, a crime scene. They need to be walking down the street to school thinking more positive things so they can get into school and learn. So
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
yep.
Communication.
Yes, sir.
Communication's
Yes,
key.
sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then so you've seen that once the transition happened and you guys took over, maybe even some of those Atlanta officers were kind of relieved. They didn't want to do that, and you're getting
It's
officers that really
interesting.
want to do it, right?
Yeah, it's
Those are the
interesting you
officers that
say
want to do
that.
it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. You're right. I mean, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was like, I had we had a town hall meeting a few months ago, and one of the senior leaders at Atlanta Police said, "Look, they're the right. We messed it up." I was I was taken aback. I was like, "Wow, I can't believe he's saying that." Because I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't publicly say, that they did a bad
Yeah.
job. They didn't do such a
Yep.
great job. But he said, "Look, we messed it up. We just wouldn't do right." And this department, these guys are doing it like it needs to be done. They really focus on the kids, and that really just that was a the turning point was long before then, but that just really affirmed the work that we do. Stuff like that, things like that, hearing stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're recruiting from the same pool, but now you got officers that want to be there, and that's their focus and all that sort of thing. So what sort of relationships are your officers showing with the students and with the staff?
It's amazing, man. I have officers who are coaches. I have
Yeah.
officers who are they're creating programs in schools. Like one officer does like a weight training program with kids, and he talks about leadership stuff, talks about just general life things. I have some of my officers have programs teaching young ladies how to be young ladies and how to appropriate way to carry themselves. We're doing so many things. It's been amazing. We started a program with our social and emotional learning um, department called Books and Badges, where we bring in officers from 10 different jurisdictions to come in and read to our kids. When you think about things like that, we're having an interaction with the kid that's not custodial. Can you imagine that? These kids are
Right.
used to having, police coming because somebody called them and there's a problem in my home. Well, how about we do it in a different way? We're doing something to help benefit them. Um, and it's just a culmination of things like that. I got one of my officers started a biking program, and he taking kids out to compete in biking, long range biking competitions and stuff like that. I mean, so it's
Okay.
all kinds of things that we're doing. Um,
Yeah.
it's not, it's not perfect. There's still room for growth, but there's a
Sure.
lot of things that are happening that are just great things. Definitely
Oh
some
yeah.
great things happening.
How's the reception been with the staff?
The staff love us. The staff love us. It's been it took some time. I think there were in the beginning there were frankly we had like a small number of principals who wanted us to be knock them upside the head, drag them out by their feet,
Really?
things like that. And I was like, no, that's not what we're here for. So it took a little fighting in the beginning, even with staff. I mean, because they were saying you guys are too soft, you're this, you're that. We get it. We understand that we can police all day. That's what most of us do. Most of us have a lot of experience. I mean, we didn't just start doing this,
Right.
but we understand we have to be educators. We have to be mentors. We got to do those things too. We do less policing. I don't know if you heard the triad method, where we're talking about the officer as an officer, which is what we do all day. We do that all the time. We can do that anytime with our eyes closed. But we're also mentors and educators, and those are the areas we focus on more than anything. We focus more on mentoring and educating than we do policing, and the staff gets that. They see it, and they're encouraged by it. And it's a constant work. It's constant work. It's constant reminders, constant training, and things like that. But it's well worth it because we're starting to see fewer kids getting introduced to the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. I was a school resource officer for my department for 4 years at a high school,
Oh
and
wow!
yeah, so I saw that relationship with with the kids, and I love that. But when we got in there, my chief's philosophy was, we as the police department, we are not there to introduce, just like you said, introduce these kids to the criminal justice system. So if there's little fights and disregard for authority and stuff like that, where they want to call the police in, sure, we'll help mentor, but we're not there to to arrest kids and for little stuff like that. We're there for one, for like the active shooters and the big stuff, and for two, we're there to provide a positive influence on these kids and mentor. So it took a while because I was in my jurisdiction, the SRO program had been discontinued for about a decade, and then we brought it back in. So we had to kind of reacclimate the staff and let them know that we're not here to write tickets and arrest kids for little stuff. You guys can handle that on the administrative end. Did I just lose you? Did I lose you there for a minute?
Yeah, we did. We got lost for a
Yeah.
second. I just
I guess my diatribe was too much there for you.
you know, you're on the road. And so the judge told you, that y'all there to engage, right?
Yes, we were there to engage the kids, and that was the best part of it that I liked.
There we go, man. There we go. And
For
that's what
sure.
that's what we one of the things that I preach to my officers when they come on board. If you're not ready to deal with kids, let us know now. I mean, at some point, if you can't do it, leave, because otherwise you're
Yeah.
gonna get yourself in trouble. We
Yeah.
are here to engage our kids, not to arrest them and police them. That's what we're here for. We're here to engage and keep them safe, so they can get to that stage and walk across the stage and get their diploma. That's
There
the
you
goal.
go. There you go. Now I know you said you came from the sheriff's department where you were the SWAT commander and you were a
Man,
warrior, and then you got to change that mindset to guardian. Do you
Yes.
find that? Do you find that people that want to apply to be officers for that department, you got to kind of let them know this is kind of different from possibly where you were coming from or what you think that law enforcement is?
Yeah, we don't take for granted that they've had years of working in agencies that instilled the whole idea of being warriors. I was a trainer in the police academy. That's what I taught officers to be, were warriors, man. I didn't teach them to be guardians. I want get out there, knock some heads, do what you got to do, and get home every day. But
Yeah.
in this space, we not only recognize the need to be different, we went a step further and built a training program that helped give them tools to start thinking here instead of using the tools around their belt. And that training, we put them in training for a few weeks before we even put them in a school. It's training in social emotional learning, positive behavior intervention, and supports. Some of the stuff, same stuff that our teachers get: restorative practices, mental health first aid, crisis intervention team, um, crisis intervention team youth. So it's a lot of programming that we have that we give our officers so they can really, when they're interacting with kids, they think about the interaction and base their responses on some of the stuff that they learn. We're giving them more tools because I believe what happens is our officers on the road are limited to what they are taught. So
Right.
for some, they have that self drive to be able to learn things, but if we don't give them the tools, it's like giving an officer um, um, an officer who doesn't have a taser and you give him a taser. He's not going to do so well with that taser if he doesn't have the training. It's like, so if we're dealing with our kids, we need to give them tools to be able to interact with them. And if you don't have that, if you can't recall that when you're dealing with kids, if you can't recall, okay, he's acting a certain way, this is very similar to what I learned about autism. So I know that, I understand that, so I can deal with them differently,
Yes.
right? And so every officer doesn't get that. I mean, we are one of the only we are the only school police department that was recognized by the IACP um, for some of our practices that we've done. So a lot of traditional police departments have done it, but our police department, every officer gets this training. So in a lot of places you see some get it, some don't, but we are very intentional about that. We want to give them the tools that they need in order to do the job in a
That's
way
what's
that's
up.
going to impact the kids positively. So,
That's
yep.
what's up. Let me give you some round of applause there.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what's up. Yep. So did you I know during 2020 when everything would just went to craziness there. At
Mhm.
least out here in California, Southern California, and in LA, which has its own school police department, there was a push to pull the officers out of schools. Did you
Mhm.
guys experience any of that? I know, in the South, maybe in Georgia, it's a little different than out here
Yeah,
in
it's a little
California.
different. Yeah, we saw a little bit of that, but I'm gonna tell you, man, we do so much. You saw me, you met me over LinkedIn. I'm also on
Yep.
Instagram and Facebook, and it's X now. So one of the things that we would do is be very vocal about what we do for our kids, right? So we're posting as often as we can, not as probably not as much as we could be, but as often as we can. And when we start so much so that when we started getting pushback from people over social media, I had people coming to our rescue, man. I had people coming saying, "No, this is not the department you're talking about. You need to go mess with somebody else," basically. So we got a lot of support from our community for the work that we do. And it's interesting you talk about LAUSD. I was there the January before the pandemic broke out, right? So I was there in January. The
Okay.
pandemic broke, everything happened in March. But I spent
Right.
some time there in Los Angeles, and they have a great program there, man. They had a lot of good stuff that I
Yeah.
brought back and tried to implement here at APS. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Yeah.
was tough. It was a tough time for me, for all of us. It was a tough time for
Oh
me.
yeah,
It
no
was
doubt.
it was it was worrying about my officers and making sure that they were okay. We were trying to feed kids when school was out, so we would. I mean, it was a heavy lift, man. I'll be honest with you. some really rough work trying to getting food to all of our kids, making sure they have something to eat, and then making sure the family has something to eat, because
Yes.
that's when they come to school. They come to school to eat. Our kids, the kids we serve, we have to give them, some of them, backpacks full of food on Friday just so they have food over the weekend.
Wow.
If they have long breaks, kids don't want to go on break because they're going to miss meals. They get some kids we're feeding breakfast, dinner, and lunch. So
Right.
thinking about that, when I think about myself personally, and I was thinking about the name of your show, Black in Blue. I remember
Yes.
telling people in meetings we have, I said, I'm black and blue. I said, I'm
Yep.
dealing with both sides of the issues when we talk about dealing with out in the community. If I'm not in uniform, I'm dealing with the issues of a black man. When I'm in uniform, I'm dealing with the issues of a police officer. I saved a lot of money because I didn't go out to eat in uniform. I would bring my lunch. Man,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want people giving me the special sauce on my hamburger. I didn't want people
Yeah.
spitting in
Yeah.
my food or giving me a hard time,
That's
because that's what I
real.
started to see. I started to see things like that, and not taking away from the issues that was going on in the community, with all of the issues with police officers who misusing force and things like that. I'm not take away anything from that, but it was just tough. It was just
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, because the Atlanta area had some issues around that
We
time as
did.
well, right? Was that
We did.
Arbery and a couple
Yes.
other ones as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, you guys were feeling it
Yes, we
out there.
did. We want the news out almost every day, man. Well, for us, it was it wasn't we didn't see as much internally. There was some, believe it or not, there was some internal strife, from teachers and administrators who,
Okay.
took issue. We get, like, how it is in law enforcement.
Yeah, you're
You
gonna get
could
it
be
everywhere.
an agency that never have a problem, and you get pulled in with everybody else. All of a sudden,
Yep. Yep.
we're the guys who choked out, who killed George Floyd. We're the guys who, you know, shot, this kid, around the block. We're doing all these bad things. But the good side of it was that we got a lot of encouragement from the bulk of the staff, because they knew the work that we did. They recognized, it's unfortunate for, like in Atlanta police, they were able to, separate us from them. They said, you guys are different. Now, one thing that came out of this, and I'll share this with you. One thing that came out of this was, I met with a group of students and just talking to them about, what would they like to see different from us. And when it didn't ring in my mind until a kid told me, he said, you know what, you guys look just like Atlanta police. You guys should consider changing your uniform. And I heard it from officers, and I just never really I was like, look, what I'm trying to do was, honestly, what I was trying to do was create an environment where they would see us, they would think positive about us, and automatically think positive about Atlanta police. But it wasn't until I heard all these kids say, look, it ain't working. Because when we see you, we see them. And I was like, wow. So I ended up just changing the uniform just a little bit. More relaxed shirt, like the one I have on, more relaxed pants, not look so militaristic. And our kids are, fortunately, they feel comfortable coming to us. They feel comfortable engaging with us, as a result. So that was one thing I got out of that, out of the conversation with the students about that.
Yeah. That one way you could be really relaxed around the kids and make them feel comfortable, get you some, a black and blue t-shirt.
I like that. I like that. I like that.
Black
I
and blue.
like that. I had to get me one. I had to get me one.
Yeah, I'll
Yep.
send you one. I'll send you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'll
Yes.
wear it. I'll certainly wear
Indeed,
it.
indeed. Yep, yep. So, I'm sure it's a little bit different from, your experience at the sheriff's office and, a bulk of the officers' experiences at Atlanta PD or wherever you're getting your officers from.
Mhm.
Tell me about, your experiences as an Atlanta school police officer, the sort of things that they do on the daily, the sort of things on the law enforcement side, what are they doing to make sure that the students are safe?
Wow. The amount I talked about, the level of need, for our students, and how they don't need us to police them, right? They
Right.
need more of the mentor and the educator side of us. But we're doing things like every day, we're getting calls to for mental health support. We're getting calls for that for our kids. We're getting calls for fights. So we're dealing with a lot of fights. We're dealing with gangs. I actually had to start a gang unit because the gangs are so prevalent in Atlanta, and schools are a breeding ground for that. So we're trying to do things to help you know curb the appetite for gangs. So I sent 17 officers. I have a big group of officers who are great instructors, gang resistance education and training. So we just started doing that in the elementary schools. I mean, so we're doing, a lot of things to help get ahead of potential problems. Unfortunately, we have to make arrests. Sometimes we do.
Yes.
Kids make decisions. They do stuff that don't make sense. They'll bring a gun to school. Um, they'll bring a knife to school. They'll make threats to blow up a school. I mean, we're investigating that. It's a host of things. It's almost, if you take a slice of some of the issues in Atlanta, we're seeing the same things, with the exception of homicides, right? We're seeing almost
Right.
everything. It's a robbery, it's a rape, attempted rape, it's burglary, it's thefts, you know, it's all sorts of things. And we're getting the
Yeah.
whole gamut of issues in Atlanta, in Atlanta schools, unfortunately. But I have to
Yeah.
say, it's a small percentage of the population that's committing a large percentage of the issues that we see.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're constantly working with administrators to try to find ways to deal with kids outside of the criminal justice system. But unfortunately, sometimes we have to
Yeah.
go there. So
Yep.
try to do as little
And
policing as we can, but unfortunately, we have to.
yep. Yep. I mean, that's what we're here to do. Bottom line. Bottom line.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one big thing that kids got to deal with nowadays is social media, and a lot of them
Cool.
don't act right on social media. Right now, I'm an investigator with the ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. So I deal
Okay.
with all the illicit imagery that some post
Mhm.
online, and,
Mhm.
and and I have to do give
Mhm.
them speeches and kind of mentor them against you know doing stuff like this online that can get them in trouble later on in life. But I tell a lot of them, you and I are about the same age, Chief, and I tell them, I didn't have that issue when I was your age.
Right.
I keep it
Right.
real and let them know that, hey, I was your age once too, and maybe if I had a cell phone, I'd be in trouble too. But I try to mentor them. What do you see about stuff like that going on in schools with social media and children, these kids, they don't see themselves as kids, but sending imageries to each other and stuff like that.
That's been our biggest problem is social media. It's not
Yeah.
just inappropriate pictures and things like that, but we also see, you know, gang beefs. We see,
Oh yeah.
fights. A lot of fights originate because of that. It was interesting. We about 4 years ago we started recognizing how kids feel comfortable fighting in school because it's a sanitized environment. There are no knives or guns, so they feel more comfortable, and it's going to get stopped. So they feel more comfortable fighting in school than they do in the neighborhood. So we see a lot of stuff that happens in the neighborhood that comes to our school. The same thing with social media. A lot of things that happen on social media, they don't handle it in the streets; they handle it at schools. So we are trying to invest in really paying more attention to social media, staying up to date on the Instagrams, the Snapchats. The kids don't use Facebook anymore, but really focusing on those platforms that kids are really focusing, looking into, and trying to get ahead of some of the issues. We're working with
Yeah.
other agencies also because we're talking to each other about what we're seeing. If APD sees something, they're going to let us know. If we see something, we'll let them know, and vice versa. All of the school districts are working together with that. If we could take away phones, I think we see a big drop in the number of issues we're having in our schools.
Yeah, I remember when social media first started becoming a big thing that, a lot of teachers and administrators tried to, take kids' phones at the beginning of the day,
Hmm.
put them in a big
Hmm.
basket, and,
Hmm.
and those days are long
Hmm.
gone. These kids can't
It
live without their
is.
phone regardless,
It is. I
unfortunately.
used to tell kids when I was teaching. I used to when I think for me it was my size, my voice. I was very commanding. I would not allow cell phones in my classroom. I said, look, if it comes out, I'm taking it. And I would. I'd take a couple of kids' phones. I call their parents and say, hey, I have one of the rules in my classroom. And they sign a little letter before school starts at the beginning of the year to take them to their parents to get signed. One of them, it noted that if they have the cell phones out, then I'm going to take it. I'm going to call the parent. They're going to come and get it. So I got their attention. I had their attention the
Yeah.
entire class.
Yeah.
I know that's, again, for me it worked well, and for other teachers it might have been a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I mean, if we could do something with that, that'll make a big difference in some of the issues we
Yeah.
see.
I mean, it's kind of tough to do that blanket policy, because I know a lot of kids
Hmm.
use, most of my kids are in college now. So, I experienced that when
Yeah.
they were in high school, and even now in college. A lot
Hmm.
of them, take pictures and notes with their phones,
Yeah.
that the instructor's
Yeah.
putting on
Yeah.
or they'll record the lecture on their
Yeah.
phone, or
Hmm.
they're using the
Hmm.
calculator on their phone. So,
Hmm.
things are just different. So we got to kind of adapt and not be so old school,
Agree.
but yeah,
Agree. Agree.
yeah,
Agree. Definitely agree
yeah.
with that.
So, yep, yep. So tell me about some of the rewarding parts of your job, as the chief, not necessarily just working for Atlanta School Police, but as the chief of Atlanta Schools.
Well, I tell you, the one of the biggest things that the one day that I look forward to the most is graduation. And I
Yes.
never really thought about how much of an impact we have on the learning environment. If we can create a safe learning environment, kids are going to learn. They're going to do well. They can, we got to, if we can create that environment for them, they're going to be um, citizens who are going to be contributing to the community. Man, but to be at graduation and see these kids walk across the stage, see the excitement on the kids' face, see the excitement on the parents' face, and every once in a while have that kid that you have a good connection with come across and hug you or thank you for all that you did for them. That right there is what it's all for. That's what it's all for at the end of the day. It's
That's what it's
all
all
about
about.
that. It's all
Yep.
about that. Get them to the end of that race, man. We can get them there and get them there safely. The rest is, it's just, it's all about drive. It just makes a big difference for me. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's one of the most rewarding things about my job. One of the most
Yeah, I
rewarding.
loved when I came out to school, and every now and then I'll still see some kids that were at the high school I was at, and every now and then say, "Hey, Peters, what's going on?" Or and
Hmm.
something like
Hmm.
that, or I'll help out on a call that patrol is on, and if I recognize the name, I can go to that area and say, "Oh yeah, that's so and so. I used to deal with him as a student," and then I kind of get that situation under control. So I love that. I love that.
Right. Exactly. Same here. Same here. Same here.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
To see those relationships and how much of an impact that you have. I mean, I know that the teachers are in the classroom with them all day, but if just for a kid to come over and just hug you and say thank you for all you've done, that's amazing, man. That's just like, wow, this is what it's all about. Though, at the end of the
Yep.
day, this is what it's all about.
No doubt. No
That's what
doubt.
it's all about.
But on the flip side, what's some of the more challenging parts of your job?
Uh, seeing some of the inequities in the communities, seeing how in some schools, it's the best environment you could imagine. And in other schools, there's so many distractions, whether it's inside the school, whether it's outside the school. I have schools, some schools we're having to do lockdowns once a week. Some schools that never do lockdowns, and if they had to, they wouldn't know what to do because they never have to do them. But seeing some of those inequities in some of the schools is a bit challenging. Seeing some of the challenges that kids go through. For example, I had a kid who needed some shoes. I went and bought some shoes. I brought it back to the school. This was early on when I started, and brought it back to the school. And the principal said, "Hey, Chief, you know what? Don't give him those shoes. He can use them when he's at school, but he can't take it home because if he takes it home, his mom's going to take them and sell them." And I was
Mm,
like, "Wow."
yeah.
And that's one of thousands of stories. We had a kid kid came to school. Um, APD called us and they said, "Hey, there's a kid that goes to this school. His mom is dead. The boyfriend is dead. We're trying to see if he knows anything." Um, Counselor came in, got him sat down and talked with the kid. The kid said, "Hey, yeah, I saw them laying there, but I didn't want to mess up my perfect attendance." And I was like, "Oh my God!" That was probably the first time I was in tears, man. Went, got in the car, and just couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's things like
Yeah.
that just breaks my heart, man. Some of these kids and some of the stuff that they're dealing with, but it also drives me, and that's what pushes me to try to do everything I can to make sure that we're treating them in a way they deserve to be treated, and that they're in an environment that's free from all these distractions, so they can learn and they can work their way. out of the situation that they're in. So if I could do that, that makes a big difference. But those are the challenges, man. These kids, our kids have, it's a large number of kids, and in the African American community, how a lot of parents, when it comes to mental health issues, they're not going to acknowledge that. I mean, they're not going to. We don't want to deal with that. He's just bad. I'm just going to beat the crap out of him. He'll be fine. Or just the stigma of having some type of mental health issue is another challenge. And so understanding that and knowing that, and again, understanding what those disorders are, what those issues are, and when we interact with them is important for us to know and recognize that, so that we don't, criminalize a child because they have autism, or criminalize a child because they have attention deficit, whatever the issue is or disorder is, being able to recognize that. But we just have a lot of kids who just with a lot of issues, and they bring them all to us. They bring them all to us.
Yeah.
So,
as an African American that grew up in Atlanta, what kind of interested you to want to get into law enforcement in the first place?
Well, I always wanted to be a public servant. I think I got that from high school. I was in ROTC, junior ROTC. I wanted to go into the military. My brother was in the military. I wanted to be like him. But I also found that, there was a way to do something similar and also work with the public a little bit closer. And so I got into law enforcement. So it got me into it. And at first it was, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be, to experience as much as I could. And you know how it goes when your first few years, man, you're running and gunning and just, taking it all in and being a sponge. And so, so it kind of went from there. I wanted to serve the public at the end of the day. I know it sounds prophetic, but I did. I wanted to serve the public.
Wanted to serve the public, and you did, and you still are.
Still doing it. Man. Having a good time. Yeah. I'm having a good time. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm having a good time doing it too. I love it.
Yeah. What's it look like for 5 years for you?
Well, my really waiting for my daughter to get out of school. So she's going to be pushing about 5 years. She's working to be a pilot, so I got to give her a little time to get on her feet. But once she does, in about 5 years, I could very well be retired at that point. Pretty much shutting it down. I'm looking at doing some consulting work and things like that. Kind of, you work on things as you go. You work on opportunities for stuff like that as you go along. But hopefully, in 5 years, I could retire. And if not, I'm hoping I'll be still here enjoying what I do, enjoying the work that I'm doing right now. So as long as I'm enjoying it, though, that's going to make a big difference for me.
As long as you're enjoying it. Yep. And what's diversity is a big part of everything in our organizations. We want to, you want to have people that look like you, serving the community. And what's your force look like as opposed to the school environments that you guys serve?
We're not as diverse when it comes to white officers. I don't have any white officers. I have two Hispanic officers. Yeah, I have two Hispanic officers, and that's the closest I can come to white. I had white officers when I started, quite a few actually, but I think they just got they had their feel of dealing with the large African American population. Not to take anything away from them. It just became a bit challenging for them, I imagine. But yeah, I don't have a single white officer, but I have a lot of female officers. So I think about diversity in sex. So it's a lot of women. Probably about 1/3 of my department is female. About 1/3 of the department is female.
And that's reaching that 30 by 30 goal right there.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'll take all I can get. It's I'm not even setting the limit. It's just, if you qualify, let's go. We'll get you out there and get you going. We'll give you the tools you need, and let's see what you can do with it. So, yes, sir.
What's you guys' recruiting tool to get people in the door, as opposed to
so it's been word of mouth. I haven't been doing much recruiting. It's been word of mouth. The officers in the department talk to other people who they know from other departments. So I have all of my officers are from various different departments in the metro area, from police departments, sheriff's departments, other school police. Our pay is very competitive. We're probably top 5 in the state when it comes to pay. We don't have the summers off, but the kids out of the building is like being off. So there's a lot of breaks in between throughout the year that our officers get with no kids in the building to kind of shut it down a little bit. So the pay is an incentive. The the environment is an incentive, and a lot of people say it's a good leadership. Your good leadership is going to bring people in too. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I have a great team, and my team does a pretty good job of dealing with our people and how we deal with our folks, and people, and that gets around. People hear that and see that and want to be a part of it. So,
Yeah.
we're not where we want to be, but we're definitely in a good place. Thanks to the folks we bring on board.
No doubt. No doubt. So, before we wrap this up, talk about some mistakes that you learned over your career that, you kind of learn from, and you can kind of impart some of that knowledge to some of our viewers.
Wow, I tell you, man, the one thing that I say all the time, and I learned from one of my commanders was, don't win the battle and lose the war. There's some
Okay.
things that just not worth fighting for. You just kind of let it go. And because you very well may win that fight, and at the end of the day, it ruins you down the line. Because some people have long memories when it comes to winning and losing, and there are a lot of folks out there, man, who um, I've ran into situations where when I was a SWAT commander, I was a SWAT commander. You see the stuff on television.
Okay.
If you know any, they're A types. They like winning battles, right? So I
Yep.
was at SWAT command and I won all my battles. I'm going to win it all the time. I don't care what you say or do. But I felt that on the back end. I felt it on my opportunities for growth was limited because of those things that happened in the past, those battles that I won, those small things I could have just just step aside, leave it alone, keep it moving. We'll deal with that later. That's
Right.
one thing. In law enforcement, I think education is very important. I think one of the things I'm glad that I did, I took me a long time to do it, was go out and get my master's degree. I have all the coursework for a PhD, but I got this job, so I couldn't finish that. But I did everything but dissertation with the PhD.
Hmm.
Education is key. Education is very important, and it doesn't have to be the formal in college, but it could be all the classes in law enforcement. So as many classes you can get, the more knowledge you have, the better off you're going to be. Networking, you got to know people. You're not going to get anything done if you don't know folks. I
Okay.
think I attribute part of a lot of the success of this department to my networking before I retired from the sheriff's office. I met a lot of the guys with APD, for example, with Georgia State Patrol, with adjoining agencies that I interacted with when I was with the sheriff's office. We stayed, in communication with each other all the way through. So when I came on with the APS, I was getting calls from them saying, "Hey, App, that's what they call me, App. Hey, App, I got you, man. Don't worry about it. Anything I can do, you let me know." That's what I was getting from a lot of different agencies, and it made a difference. A lot of people don't value the networking. Some people think, oh, I don't have to talk to them. It doesn't make any difference. But building those relationships and networking is important. It's real important. Um, the other thing I'll leave it at this: was spread your wings. Try different things. Try interacting with different groups. One of the things that I've really been intentional about is doing things that is a lot different than what you typically see police officers do. So I'm getting involved with community groups, getting involved with just different things outside of the norm, to try to get a better understanding of what we're dealing with here in Atlanta. And that's
Okay.
been very valuable to me. So it's been very valuable, very valuable.
Yep.
Just kind of interact with different groups, different backgrounds, different communities, just to see what they're dealing with, see what kind of issues they're dealing with, see how they're dealing with issues, giving me ideas and putting tools in my toolbox to help me grow, help my team grow, in that respect. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. All right. All
That's it.
right. What do you like to do when you're not working?
Oh man, I got a big screen television, and I sit down in front of that thing, man. Television and movies is my thing.
Okay.
Televisions and
Okay.
movies. I do a lot of hanging out with the kids. My kids are old; they're graduated from high school, but going to visit them in college. One of the other things, but really just relaxing as much as I can. Trying to get re-energized. I know I put a lot into work. I probably need to put a lot more in myself. One of the things I'm working on now, but I really just try to get re-energized, try to step away from the work as much as I can, and
Got
really
you.
try to get balanced and focus on my family. So
Got you.
that's one of the things I focus on is family.
Yeah, that's one of the things I would tell, people when I was in FTO, tell new officers, hey, don't, branch out. Don't have just all cop friends, you know.
Exactly.
Get some friends that are in different professions. And a lot of times you could do that with a significant other and, and the friends, but you had friends before you were cops, assuming that they were, on the right side of the tracks. Because if they're on the wrong side of the tracks, yeah, you got to get rid of them. But, yeah, I mean, branch out and do different things, and yeah, all that stuff that'll keep you, mental wellness right there. That'll keep you.
That's it, man.
You got to leave some of that stuff at the office.
Exactly.
And I was telling kind of tough for you as a chief, though. Kind of tough for you as a chief.
It is, man. It's a lonely
yeah.
spot, man. It's a lonely spot. I can't hang out with the troops, and it's just some other folk. I have a small group of people that I can really connect with. So one of the things I do, I work out, man. I make sure I got a Peloton bike. I get on that, almost every day. I go to the gym and do step classes. So that has been my relief right there. That helps me get back focused and get back on track and stay focused on what I'm doing. So
all right, Chief, got to see you on your step classes. Got to see.
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what? I hadn't started a video. I thought about it. I said, I don't know if I want to videotape this stuff, man, but I'm having a good time, man. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. So you're doing the step on the risers. You're not doing the step
on the risers, yeah,
front to back.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not doing.
Yes, sir.
You're not doing the R. Kelly step.
No, not the R. Kelly, step. But this one is on the risers. Yeah, exactly. There we go. On the risers, exactly.
Yeah. R. Kelly. That's another subject for another day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Hey, Chief. Hey, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and this is a great conversation talking about the school safety. Hey, how about some words of wisdom for anybody looking to get into law enforcement before I get you out of here?
Yeah. Do your research. There's a book called Grow. The G stands for gain knowledge. That means learn as much as you can about what you want to do. Reach out to others. Find people who are doing what you want to do. If you're interested in law enforcement, talk to some officers from different agencies doing different roles. Ask them what it's like. Get advice from them. Open your world. So G for gain knowledge. R for reach out to others. O for open your world. That means just be open to a lot of different things. So it's not just talking to somebody working for the police department. How about the marshal's office or the sheriff's office or, U.S. Marshals, the Border Patrol. So start looking at different organizations and understanding what they do and walking towards wisdom. So taking all of that information that you've gained knowledge from when you reached out to others, you open your world, walk towards wisdom and go and make that move and make a decision about what you want to do. This job is not, you're not going to get rich being a police officer,
Nope.
But it can definitely be rewarding. It can definitely be rewarding. So just understand that.
That part.
Yes, sir.
All right, Chief. Hey, I appreciate you. And hey, be safe out there, and we'll talk soon.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
You got it, sir. Be safe.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay, y'all, another awesome Black and Blue podcast interview is in the books. I want to thank Atlanta Public Schools Police Chief Ronald Applin for taking some time out of his busy schedule to hang out with me today. If you guys enjoyed this episode too, hey, please let me know by leaving a comment down below. I'll be back in a couple weeks with another story from a minority in law enforcement. But till then, y'all know the phrase, stay black and blue. I'll holler at you. Deuces.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.